Okay, ma. Today experiment number 13, ma. Experiment number 13. To study the adaptations of flowers pollinated by different agencies like a wind, insect, bird, and water. Okay, different types of pollinations we have to see. That is the aim. And next requirements. Okay, and procedure. And next observation. Okay, observation from here onwards, whatever the experiments that you are going to write, all those observations should be written on the right side only. Whatever the experiments up from now onwards, whatever you are writing, okay, all those experiments you have to write on the right side only. Only the diagrams you have to draw on the left side corresponding. Okay, all the experiments will be like this only from here onwards. Okay, that is in the manual. It will come like a section B, okay, which are meant for spotters. Okay, spotting is there, no 7 marks spotting is there, no, for that 7 marks spotting, among that for that 7 marks, okay, all experiments will come from this only, from this part only. Okay, from onwards, whatever the experiments that we are going to write, all those will have the spotting only. So we can see here observation. Okay, we had to write anemophily, that is pollination by wind. Okay, example maize. Okay, here 3 examples are given, but we'll go with only maize. Okay, and the diagram we have to draw on the left side. Okay, this maize, okay, anemophily and maize we have to write on the right side, and the diagram on the left side corresponding to this. And next, the second one is entomophily, that is pollination by insects. Okay, that is salvia is given. Okay, you can see here. Okay, you have to write these observation points, and later you have to draw these diagrams. Okay, here we can see one diagram. Okay, 4 diagrams are there. You can draw only one diagram. This last diagram you can draw. Okay, this 4th diagram. Okay, remaining all are striked off. Okay, so we are showing the mechanism. How you can see here the stigma coming in contact with the body of the insect. Okay, that diagram if you draw, that is enough. And next ornithophily, that is pollination by birds. Okay, bignonia. Okay, this these points you have to write on the right side, and this diagram you have to draw on the left side. Here only one diagram. Okay, bignonia and a hummingbird we can see here, which is collecting the nectar, okay, from the plants, flowers of these plants. And next, the hydrophily, that is pollination by water. Vallisneria, okay, related to this Vallisneria. Okay, you have to write on the right side, and here you can see the diagram. Okay, the diagram you have to draw on the left side. And finally, the result and precaution on the right side only. So here, whatever the writing you are doing, that one has to be done on the right side, including the observation also. Okay, and only the diagrams only you have to draw on the left side. Understand? Okay, today and tomorrow you can complete this one. Okay, this is a little bit big one, so you can complete today and tomorrow. Okay, we'll have another experiment on next, that is Friday. Okay, anybody is having any doubt? Okay. Next, coming to the next chapter, that is the chapter 14. Okay, chapter 14, that is the ecosystem. Okay, under this chapter, we'll discuss about the different concepts, like a ecosystem structure and functions. Okay, that means what is the role of ecosystem in the nature. Okay, and what are the different components that are present in an ecosystem. And next, we'll discuss about productivity, primary and secondary productivity. What is gross primary productivity? What is net primary productivity? Okay, what is net secondary productivity and what is gross secondary productivity? And next, we'll discuss about process of decomposition, how the decomposition of substances will take place. And next, energy flow. That means how energy is flowing through the ecosystem from one trophic level to another trophic level. Okay, that is the food chains and food webs. And next, we'll go with the ecological pyramids. That is the pyramid of numbers, pyramid of mass, pyramid of energy. And next, ecological succession. That means how the life has started in a place, how it was gradually transformed, and how it is converted into a forest land from a barren land. Okay, from barren land, that where there is no life at all. From that, how the organisms have been gradually increased. And next, nutrient cycling. That is, we say biogeochemical cycles. Okay, one sedimentary cycle, one gaseous cycle we'll discuss. That is a carbon cycle and a phosphorus cycle. And next, ecosystem services. Okay, ecosystem services, that is services of the ecosystem. Means what are the benefits that we are getting from ecosystem. Okay, these are the different concepts that we'll study under this chapter, ecosystem. So we'll go with the ecosystem. Already you have studied something related to this concept while you are in 9th class and 10th class. Okay, so we'll have some elaborate and a detailed description of all those concepts that you have studied in your lower class. Okay, that's so an ecosystem. An ecosystem can be visualized as a functional unit of nature. Okay, the ecosystem is considered as the structural and functional unit, that like the cell is considered as the structural functional unit of living organisms. In the same manner, okay, on the earth, the ecosystem is considered as a structural and functional unit of the nature. Okay, where living organisms interact among themselves and also with the surrounding physical environment. So that means in a place, if you take any place, in that place we'll find different types of organisms. Okay, in that place we'll find different types of organisms. So how one organism interacts with the other organism, and along with that, how these organisms will interact with the non-living or abiotic components of that environment. It may be the light, wind, water. Okay, so this interaction, organisms and the abiotic components of that environment, we are calling it as the ecosystem. So ecosystem varies greatly in size, from a small pond to a large forest or a sea. Okay, that means it may be the small place. Even if you take the house and the surroundings that are present in your okay in your premises, that one also we can consider as an ecosystem. Even if you take a aquarium that is present in your home, that is also considered as a type of ecosystem. So ecosystem, there is no restriction that the ecosystem should be present only of this size. Okay, that's why we are saying ecosystem varies greatly in size. Here we are discussing about the natural ones. Okay, ecosystem varies greatly in size from a small pond. A small pond is present, that is also considered as one ecosystem. Okay, even if you observe a large forest, so the ecosystem may be a small area like that, a small pond, and to a large area like a forest or a sea or an ocean. And next, many ecologists regard the entire biosphere as a global ecosystem. So here we can consider the total earth also as one ecosystem, which is considered as the global ecosystem, as a composite of all the local ecosystems on earth. Okay, which comprises of different, okay, the total earth or globe is considered as one ecosystem, which comprises of a large number of small number of different ecosystems. Okay, so since this system is too much big and complex to be studied at one time, it is convenient to divide into two basic categories, namely the terrestrial and the aquatic ecosystems. So it is very difficult to study the total earth as one unit because of different environmental conditions, climatic conditions, and next, okay, different regions, barriers. Okay, this, so it is very difficult, and different types of living organisms and their interactions. Okay, so because of this, it is very difficult to study all this at once. So for a better understanding and for our convenience in a easy of study of all these environments, okay, we have divided okay, these ecosystems into two types. One is the terrestrial and the second one is aquatic. Terrestrial and aquatic. Okay, when you observe the terrestrial comes under forest. What are the ecosystems that will comes under terrestrial? Means forest, grassland, and desert are some examples of terrestrial ecosystems. Okay, you can take a forest which with a large number of large trees. Okay, grasslands, okay, large number of small plants covering the land area. And a desert where temperatures are very high and the vegetation is very less are some examples of terrestrial ecosystem. These are all present in the earth only. And next, pond, lake, wetland, river, estuary. Pond means we know, lake we know, wetlands, that means regularly the water is coming and going, so that like seashores, okay, or banks of the rivers, okay, we can call it as wetlands. Okay, and next, river and estuary. Estuary means it's a place where river meets the sea. Okay, where the river meets the sea, that is called, okay, we can also call it as mouth of the river. Okay, where river meets the sea, that is called as a estuary. Okay, that is so these are some of the examples of aquatic ecosystems. Okay, that is. And next, crawfields and an aquarium may also be considered as a man-made ecosystems, or we can also simply say it as artificial ecosystems. The crawfield, because in crawfield we'll find only one type of plant growing, only one type of plant growing, okay, which is made by the human. That's why we call it as a man-made ecosystems, or okay, artificial ecosystems also we can call it as, because they are man-made. Like aquarium, the if any aquarium is present in your home means that aquarium is also a type of ecosystem, but man-made, that is artificial ecosystems, we can also say. So, okay, what we'll study in this chapter? Okay, we'll first look at the structure of the ecosystem. That means what are the different components that are present in an ecosystem and how they get interacted. And in order to appreciate the input, that is the productivity, that is how much amount of biomass is produced and how much biomass is getting transferred from one trophic level to another trophic level. Okay, that is a transfer of energy, okay, through food chain, food web, nutrient cycling, and the output, that is a degradation and energy loss. Okay, how energy is lost, okay, for what purpose the energy is used, okay, what happens to this energy which is lost. Okay, that one we'll discuss here. And we'll also look at the relationships, nutrient cycles. Okay, nutrient cycles, that is a different nutrient cycles. And next, chains, that is food chains, food webs, and how the organisms are interrelated, that are created as a result of these energy flows within the system and their interrelationships. Okay, we have done this biogeochemical cycles, food chains, food webs, okay, to understand the energy flow within the ecosystem and to understand the relationship between one organism and the other organism, and also the abiotic or physical environment of that ecosystem. That is what we can study under this chapter. So we'll go with the ecosystem structure and function. Okay, in the last chapter we have studied something. Okay, in chapter 13 you have looked at the various components of the environment, abiotic and biotic, and you studied how the individual biotic and abiotic factors affected each other and their surrounding. Okay, we discussed now, okay, how temperature is affecting the organism, and how light is affecting, how water is affecting, how soil is affecting. So these are all abiotic components that are affecting the growth of the organisms. And we also discussed about biotic components and their interactions, okay, like predation, parasitism, mutualism, competition. Okay, like this we have studied the living factors also, how they are affecting the surrounding organisms. And let us look at these components in a more integrated manner and see how the flow of energy takes place within these components of the ecosystem. So, okay, now we'll discuss about components which are in a more integrated manner. That means at a higher level, and the flow of energy and how the flow of energy is taking place within these components of the ecosystem, that is the living and non-living. Okay, And next, when you observe here, interaction of biotic and abiotic components result in a that is a characteristic for each type of ecosystem. Okay, interaction of biotic and abiotic components result in a physical structure that is a characteristic of each type of ecosystem. That means in every ecosystem we'll find different types of living organisms and different environmental conditions. So the interaction of these organisms and the living and abiotic components, that is biotic and abiotic components, will be differed from one ecosystem to another ecosystem. That's why we say characteristic. That means it is different from one ecosystem to another ecosystem. And next, identification and enumeration of plant and animal species of an ecosystem gives its species composition. So first of all, what we have to do means we have to identify the different types of species, and the number of each species also we have to study. It may be the plant or animal. Then we can understand the species composition. That means which species is abundant, which species is less, and what is the importance of each species in that ecosystem. Okay, that one we can understand by identification and enumeration of plant and animal species of an ecosystem. And next, vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels called stratification. So after identifying and enumerating the different species in an ecosystem, we have to arrange these species in a vertical manner. Okay, either from lower to higher or higher to lower. Okay, occupying different different trophic levels. Okay, so we'll find some producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers. So according to that, we'll arrange. And this arrangement, we are calling it this arrangement of vertical distribution of different species of different levels, we are calling it as a stratification. For example, in plants, we'll find different types. We'll find large trees, small trees, shrubs, herbs, grasses, grass plants. So what we'll do, we'll take the different types of plants that are present in that ecosystem, and we'll identify which is big tree, which is small tree, which is a shrub, which is herb, which is grass, and we'll arrange according to that. So that's what we'll given. For example, trees occupying top vertical strata are a layer of forest. Okay, if you take a forest, okay, the vertical, okay, in that vertical strata, the top layer is occupied by the plants. Okay, in a forest. So we'll find trees, that is the big trees occupying the first layer, and the second one is occupied by the shrubs, a little bit small ones when compared to trees, and the next third one is occupied by the herbs, which is smaller than shrubs, and the last, the bottom layer is occupied by the grasses. Okay, here we have taken the size of the plant and we have arranged. So the large trees on the top strata, and next shrubs, herbs, and next grasses. Okay, that is it. So like that we are arranging. And next, when you observe the components of the ecosystem are seen to function as a, when you consider the following aspects. That means what is the role of an ecosystem? That we can understand from these concepts. Productivity, that is the production of biomass. Decomposition, that means after the death of an organism, it may be the plant or animal. Okay, all they are decomposed. How that decomposition process will occur. And next, energy flow. That means how the energy is getting transmitted from the primary source, that is sunlight, into the plant, okay, into the plants, and from the plants to different organisms. Okay, that is what we say, understand in this energy flow. Nutrient cycling. Nutrient cycling. Okay, that means how the nutrients are getting cycled between the environment and the living organisms. That is called biogeochemical cycle. In other words, this nutrient cycling, as it is taking place between living and non-living components, that's why we can call it as a biogeochemical cycle. So how this is taking place, how the replenishing of nutrients is taking place in the soil. So that's what we'll study under this ecosystem, the components of ecosystems by which we can understand the functions of the ecosystem. Okay, to understand the ethos of an ecosystem, let us take it. That means to understand the components of an ecosystem or functions of an ecosystem, what is the role of an ecosystem? Role of an ecosystem. Okay, we have taken one example like an aquatic ecosystem, like a small pond. Okay, because small ponds are available anywhere. So we can visit to the nearby place where pond is present, and we can study that different components of that ecosystem. That's why they have given the small pond as an example. And this is fairly a self-sustainable unit and a rather simple example that explain even the complex interactions that exist in an aquatic ecosystem. Okay, that means okay, the pond simple ecosystem. The pond is a simple ecosystem. Understand? But by studying the components of this pond ecosystem, we can understand the components that are present in a large aquatic ecosystem also. So it is showing, that means it is nothing but the replica of any large aquatic ecosystem. Because whatever the components that we are finding in this pond ecosystem, almost similar components are present in the large aquatic ecosystem also. So it will be the replica. That's what. So it is simple, but it explains even a complex interaction that exists in an aquatic. Okay, when you observe the pond is a shallow water body in which all the above mentioned 4 basic components of an ecosystem are well exhibited. Shallow, that means we don't find much depth. Okay, in case of pond, the light can penetrate up to the bottom of the pond. That's why we say shallow, that means less depth. So in a pond ecosystem, which is a simple and small one, but still it shows all the components that we have discussed about, that is productivity, decomposition, energy flow, and the nutrient cycling. So the basic components, okay, which are observed in any ecosystem, all they are observed in this pond ecosystem. Okay, the abiotic component is the water with all the dissolved inorganic and organic substances, and the rich soil deposit at the bottom of the pond. Okay, okay, here what is the major abiotic component that is present in the pond ecosystem means that is water, which consists of all the dissolved inorganic and organic substances, and the rich soil deposit at the bottom of the pond. And the rich soil deposit at the bottom of the pond. Okay, that is it. And next, the solar input, the cycle of temperature, day length, and other climatic conditions regulate the rate of functioning of the entire pond. Okay, solar input, that means how much intensity of the light is available. And next, the temperature. Okay, the cycle of temperature, because different seasons will find different temperatures. And next, day length, whether it is a short day period or a long day period. Okay, and other climatic conditions regulate the rate of function of the entire pond. That means these are the abiotic factors which are regulating the pond ecosystem. That is solar, cycle of temperature, day and day length, nutrient availability. Okay, all these are the factors that are regulating or affecting the functioning of entire pond. So in a pond ecosystem, we'll find all the living components that any other ecosystem is present. It is having a producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, like this. So, okay, that is, so it possesses autotrophic, that is producers. The autotrophic components include the phytoplankton, some algae, and the floating, submerged, and marginal plants found at the edges. Okay, some are floating, freely floating without any roots. Okay, some are submerged, that is completely submerged with the roots, because here the light can penetrate up to the bottom of the pond. No, so some plants will be completely immersed within the water and get attached with the lower soil with the help of roots.